Welcome to episode 9 of What to Read This Weekend. I am Rachel. I am the campus librarian at Westinghouse High School.
And I am Princess Diva, the campus librarian at Graphic Arts High School. And this is the first real day of summer, it feels like.
It does feel like I have a tank top and shorts on. I had to pull my shorts out.
I broke it out. All right.
So if you haven't been here before, this is our weekly web series where we chat about a few books on a theme and share with you how to read them. That's the important part. They are all free and easily accessible. Well, I guess accessible. Some of them are easier than others through either a partnership that we have or the public library or being offered free online. And I'll put all the notes where you can get them on this website. And I promise to do it quicker than I did last week.
And this week's theme is Asian Pacific American authors. And we are featuring
Patron Saints of Nothing.
Correct. Frankly in Love.
The Astonishing Color of After.
And They Called Us Enemy. Plus some extras. All right. So Patron Saints of Nothing starts with Jay. He is a Filipino-American teenager. He plans on chilling for his senior year. But he finds out that his cousin, Yoon, who lives in the Philippines, has been murdered. Actually, he doesn't find that out right away. That he has died. His cousin has died. And his whole family refuses to talk about it. He asks his dad. He asks his mom. He calls his relatives in the Philippines. Nobody will give him the straight answer. He gets this very mysterious message on Instagram saying it's from one of Jen's friends. And what happens is Jay decides he's going to go hang out in the Philippines. And he tells his father that he wants to bond and learn more about his heritage, his Filipino heritage, but his real goal is to figure out who killed his cousin. Read this book if you like a little mystery. Read this book if you like sweeping social issues presented in a novel form, because it really tackles the president of Philippines' attack on drugs, and that is a central part of the plot. I super duper enjoyed this book. I was surprised I enjoyed it, and it would be it's a great fast read for anyone who's interested. You can get the book on Libby or SimplyE with your public library card and your PIN. All right, Rachel, you're up, aren't you?
Yes. So the next book is Frankly in Love. Seola, you're going to have to jump in if I say something wrong. So this is the story of Frank, and Frank is your typical high school senior. He's Korean American. He describes himself as a nerd. He loves video games and obscure movies, and he has a very high SAT score. And girls are not really on his radar until he meets this one girl, Brit. And the problem is that she is white. And, it's 2020, but his parents are still very rooted in their desire for Frank to only date and eventually marry another Korean person. So much so that his sister married a black man and kind of was disowned from the family for not staying within the Korean culture. So he decides that he is going to kind of work around this system because, he's in love with this new girl. And so he calls himself a limbo, and because he's kind of in limbo between these two cultures. And there's another girl at his school, Joy, who's also a limbo. So in order for them to have the freedom to do whatever they want, they decide to make a pact to pretend to date each other. So if you can see where this is going, there's a little bit of a love triangle. And yes, Teresa, a little bit of a love triangle. And I thought this was a really great pick. First of all, it's really recent. It talks about like really complex family dynamics, which I can relate to, in interracial relationships, racism, classism within the Asian community in the US. The ending may not be as put together as you think it would, but it kind of reminds me of David Yoon's wife, Nicola Yoon, who also wrote Everything and the Sun is Also a Star, and she doesn't tidy up her endings either. So maybe they're writing things together. You can get this one on Libby or SimplyE with your library card. And if you have questions about that, you should contact your librarian. Oh, I'm up again. The Astonishing Color of After is another book that I like super related to. The main character, Lee, her mother recently died by suicide, and Lee is convinced that her mother has turned into a bird. Not like a metaphor, like a physical, actual bird. There's a little bit of, magical realism in this book. And so she's half Asian, and she goes to Taiwan to meet her mother's parents, her grandparents, and she like forges this new relationship with them, and kind of like finds out some of her family's secrets, or like things about her family that she didn't know, or that her mother didn't ever share with her. And so that's a really cool like storyline. And then there's also this storyline of dealing with family, like a loss of a family member. My mom also passed away when I was younger, and this like guilt of like not doing enough, or not being enough, or like not being home enough, or I don't know. I just really identified a lot with this one. So I think, but also at the same time, like it was a it was a nicely wrapped up book about grief. Like not all the things are all tidy, but at the same time, like it still was comforting. And I don't know, I suggest it for everyone. I think it was really good. Marie.
Sorry, I forgot to turn my mic off. So I'm going to speak about They Call Us Enemy. It's by George Takei. It is a memoir, which means it is true. So in World War II, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, and the President Eisenhower issued an order that anyone who was of Japanese descent, didn't matter if you were born here, if you're Japanese at all, you were rounded up and you were put in the equivalent of a concentration camp. They called them internment camps, but it was sort of the same idea. So this follows George Takei, who is famous for his role as Sulu in Star Trek, as his family is taken to the camp and forced to live in the camp. Also they lost all their personal belongings, and any property was forfeited. So they basically were bankrupt. Again, graphic novels do really cool things because part of the story is also part of the pictures. So I think it's like a very poignant and powerful way to learn about that part of history. And I would recommend it for anyone who likes memoirs, or anyone who enjoys a graphic novel. And you can get it through ComicsPlus Library Edition, which is part of our New York City DOA subscription. And you just have to ask your librarian for the login, which is very simple. But there's more. Rachel, you're muted.
Kidding. We couldn't narrow it down to just 4.
Yeah, we had a really hard time this time. We were just like, no, we can't abandon all these other books. So here you go. Oh, these are like almost all of mine. So Starfish is about a girl who is half Japanese, has a lot of social anxiety, an incredibly rough home life, a relationship with her mother that isn't always ideal. And when her uncle moves back in with them, one of her friends says, why don't you come live with me for a while? And she decides to go. The other part that's kind of woven in here is that she is an artist and she applied to art school and she didn't get accepted. So when she moves with her friend, there's kind of like this journey of self-discovery. Now this is on Riveted, so you can get it for free. You just have to like log in and sign in. And if you run into problems, again, reach out to your librarian. Oh my gosh, American Born Chinese is a classic graphic novel. Has 3 tales. One is about the Monkey King. One is about Jin, who is trying to be as American as possible. And one is about his cousin, Chin, who is every Chinese stereotype you can imagine. And I don't want to give it away, but all 3 stories begin to intersect at the end. I have a lot of students who love this book. That's like their entry to memoir. Again, this is kind of like a memoir as well. All right, you got the next one, girl.
Yeah, and that's a graphic novel on Open EBooks. So I listened to Downstairs Girl a while ago, and I kind of forgot about it. And then when I was preparing for this, I was like, oh my gosh, like I really feel like Marie, you would really like Downstairs Girl. So it's historical fiction. So I think it's like 1800, late 1800s, but the main character is like this badass female feminist journalist. Like she's living in the like downstairs, like kind of like illegally squatting, and she's working for this wealthy family in town, but at the same time she's also kind of like eavesdropping and like collecting information, and she writes about like race and class for the like local paper. So I don't know. I think
it's unexpected.
You might like it. Like as I was like looking back through it, I was like, oh, I didn't give that one as much thought as I should have. So words have power. And Inside Out and Back Again is another classic. I know a lot of classrooms use this book. It's a novel written in verse, and it's also a historical fiction. And it's about a young girl, Ha, and she moves from Saigon during the Vietnam War, and her family decides to land in Alabama. Not necessarily this like racially diverse place. She finds the food to be bland and the people to be mean, and or at least like, you know, strangers are not very welcoming. And it was a really cute book. It's a really quick read. And when I looked it up, where we always look up the books to see where they're available, it's on Libby, but it was also $0 on Amazon Prime. So if you have Amazon Prime, you can download it to your Kindle for free.
American Born Panda.
No.
American Panda. You know, this is me. I'm always mushing together. It's a smash up. It's very popular. You smash apps.
Like the pen pineapple.
What?
You don't know that video? The guy who's like pen, apple, pineapple.
Yeah. This is not American Born Panda, but it would be funny. I could write a fan fiction maybe. So this is American Panda. She is Taiwanese. She grows up in a very Taiwanese family. She's on target. Her parents are so excited. She is at MIT going to be a doctor. However, she hates germs. She keeps falling asleep in science, and she's in love with a boy who is not Taiwanese. And of course, like a whole series of hilarity ensues. The thing I should say that I loved about this book, it was really funny. So if you kind of liked the Teenager's Guide to North America, which was very funny as well, this book is just as funny and wry, and there is love in this. There's no love triangle though, so I super
Sorry,
enjoyed.
Teresa.
It's all right. You'll be okay. And you can get it on Libby app with your library card. I think there's a lot. Is there a lot of copies of this one? One of them.
Yeah, all of these had significant amount of copies.
So go get it. She's very funny, the writer.
So there's not usually a lot of copies of graphic novels, but Stargazing is available at the Brooklyn Public Library. On their Libby site, there were several. Stargazing is by Jen Wang, who also wrote Prince and the Dressmaker. Very, very popular. I think we might talk about it next week. And Stargazing is definitely like for fans of Raina Telgemeier. It came out around the same time as Guts, but I thought it was, and it kind of like addresses similar type, like differently abled, a little bit of like kind of similar topics. I'm stretching it here a little bit, but it's really cute. It's about these two young girls, Moon and Christine, and they kind of have these like different parenting situations and kind of like different home lives, and they end up moving in very close to each other and in the same suburb of this like very Chinese American neighborhood. And like things are going okay, and then something kind of terrible happens, and Christine has to really help Moon out, and it's a lot of like empathy building. It was really cute. And I really wanted to shout out Kelly Yang. She just came out with this book, Parachutes. It's a YA book. You might have seen her because her book Front Desk won some awards last year at the Youth Media Awards. Three Keys is going to be the sequel to Front Desk. Those are both middle grade novels. Parachutes is her young adult novel, and I listened to her on Tuesday at the book release with Laurie House Anderson, and it is just, I'm going to buy it for myself for my birthday, which is in 2 weeks. And it's a story of, so a parachute is what they call a wealthy Asian girl who's shipped off to America to go to high school and or college. And their parents stay back in wherever they're from. It's a kind of an Asian encompassing word. And so this student is sent to live with another student, and again, like she's comes from this very wealthy family, and who she's living with is just a regular kid, and there is some issues that happen revolving around sexual harassment and sexual assault, so I do want to put a content warning on this, like definitely young adult. But And when I heard, I haven't read this book yet, but when I heard Kelly Yang talk about it, she literally was tearing up and saying that this is like really the first time that she has ever talked about this. A similar like sexual assault incident happened to her personally when she was at Harvard. And she ended up quitting law school, which is fine because then she became a really amazing writer. So I just am really invested in this book, and I didn't think there were going to be any copies of it. There's a few copies, but actually somebody from the Brooklyn Public Library reached out, and hopefully we will be getting, she asked if there was anything I would request, and this is what I requested. So hopefully there'll be some more copies of this coming soon to the Brooklyn Public Library. So super excited about that. Marie, you want to talk about Audiobook Sync?
Yes. So we have Audiobook Sync again. You can hook yourself up with 2 free books. Just use your Sora app. I don't really know what these books are about.
Me
I just
either.
downloaded them. Do you
But
know
they're
what they're?
pretty.
I'm assuming they're awesome.
They usually pick great things. And you have 98 years to read them in case you don't want to read them this summer.
Or listen to them.
Oh, right, because it's listening.
I mean, if you can read listening, or maybe that's a mashup right there. Mashup.
And this weekend would have been Book Expo / BookCon. It has obviously been canceled. And BookCon is doing a program, BookCon Online, which this is really a throwback advertisement for anybody who was on a computer in the early 90s.
You are not
Yeah.
old, are you, Rachel, for this?
Are you kidding? Yes, I am.
Oof. Yeah. I remember briefly.
So I am super excited to see some of their streaming stuff on Facebook. I think Facebook has a pretty decent platform for watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Like way better than Zoom. But there's a bunch of good authors, amazing lineup. So if you're on Instagram, that's a great place, or Facebook, or you can reach out to me, Seola, and I'll tell you when all your favorite authors are going to be there.
And I would say, if you have some hate of large crowds or people, this is your perfect chance to go to BookCon.
Yeah.
And there's not really any lines you have to wait in and people you have to interact with because you're at home.
Although I think some of my friends might be sad that I don't come home with like giant suitcases of ARCs. Yeah, no swag and no ARCs. Boo. But that's okay. We'll live. We're going to be healthy instead. And that's it. Our show notes are going to be at bit.ly/what to read this week in 2020. Hopefully this evening. And next week we are going to have another special guest.
Ms. Andrea Swenson. We're gonna kick off Pride Month with our awesome LGBT plus novels.